Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In a prestigious concert hall, chandeliers glittered and red seats were filled with eager spectators. On stage, a renowned pianist, renowned worldwide for his virtuosity and legendary arrogance, was preparing his fingers on the black and white keys. His confident smile betrayed the certainty that no one could ever rival his talent. In the shadows near the entrance, a blind boy stood leaning on his cane. He was only 12 years old, but his mind and fingers possessed extraordinary sensitivity. People looked at him with curiosity and a little pity, some whispering that this little boy could never impress an audience accustomed to excellence. The pianist, upon hearing of the boy's presence, raised an eyebrow and said condescendingly, "Let me guess, you think you can play better than me?" The boy didn't respond with words. He simply sat down at the piano in the corner of the stage, where the light barely fell on him. Then he began to play. At first, the melody was soft, almost timid. But soon, the notes took on incredible force, sweeping the audience away in a whirlwind of emotion. Each chord, each pause, seemed to tell a story, awakening forgotten memories and feelings. Silence fell, heavy with awe and wonder. Even the famous pianist, accustomed to frenzied applause, felt a lump form in his throat. He had just understood that genius is not measured by fame or celebrity. It sometimes hides in the heart of a child, invisible to the eyes of the world, capable of making thousands of spectators cry with the purity of his talent. When the boy finished, a long, silent breath rippled through the room, followed by wild applause. The famous pianist bowed slightly to him, aware that he had just witnessed something far greater than his own glory. And in that moment, the blind boy, with his discreet smile and his immense heart, had triggered an emotion that no one would ever forget. After the concert, the audience slowly dispersed, still in shock from the boy's performance. Backstage, the famous pianist Alexander Whitman watched him. He had never felt such emotion in front of someone so young. The boy, named Ethan Carter, felt his teacher's hand on his shoulder. Mr. Reynolds, a man in his 60s, smiled proudly. "You were amazing, Ethan," he murmured. "But you'll have to learn to deal with jealousy and criticism." Alexander approached, placing his fingers on the piano hesitantly. How do you do that?" he asked, almost incredulously. Ethan shrugged, his smile calm but determined. "I don't just listen with my ears," he replied softly. "I feel the music." A silence fell. Alexander, known for his arrogance, didn't know what to say. Usually, he was the one who dictated the scene, who imposed his talent. But in front of Ethan, he felt for the first time, overwhelmed. "You have a rare gift," Alexander continued, more to himself than to Ethan. "But be careful. The music world is cruel, especially to a boy like you." Ethan nodded, without fear or doubt. "I know," he replied simply. "But I want people to feel what I feel." This encounter would change both of their lives. Alexander would discover that talent is not measured by fame, and Ethan would learn that even the most respected geniuses can be mere humans in the face of passion and sincerity. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Ethan, guided by his cane, walked beside Mr. Reynolds. He couldn't see the city, but he felt it, breathed it. And somewhere in the distance, a star seemed to shine brighter, as if to announce the beginning of an adventure that would shake up the world of music. A few weeks later, Ethan received an unexpected invitation. He was selected to participate in a national competition for young pianists. The trade newspapers were already talking about the blind child prodigy, and some music professionals were seeing him as a new legend. Mr. Reynolds was both proud and worried. "Ethan, this competition won't be easy," he said. "The judges are demanding, and many won't take you seriously because of your age, or because you're blind." Ethan smiled, impassive. "I don't need them to take me seriously, I just want them to feel music." The day of the competition arrived. The hall was immense, filled with hundreds of spectators and journalists. On stage, other child pianists performed complex pieces with precision, some with impressive skill, but all seemed mechanical. When Ethan sat down at the piano, a strange tension ran through the room. Some murmured, others looked on skeptically. Alexander Whitman, invited as an honorary judge, watched with curiosity mixed with doubt. Ethan closed his eyes and let his fingers guide his heart. The first note resonated, then a cascade of powerful and moving melodies filled the room. Each chord seemed to tell a story, each nuance awakening emotions no one expected from a child. At the end of his performance, there was complete silence for a few seconds before the room erupted into wild applause. Some of the usually stoic judges had tears in their eyes. Even Alexander, who had seen so many prodigies, was speechless. Backstage, Mr. Reynolds congratulated him. "You've won their hearts, Ethan. This isn't just a contest of technique, it's a contest of fashion." Alexander approached, for the first time without arrogance. "I think I have a lot to learn from you, boy." And so the little blind boy, with his courage and sensitivity, came from exceed all expectations, opening the door to a world where his genius would soon revolutionize music like never before. After the competition, Ethan's reputation grew at a rapid pace. Journalists dubbed him the blind prodigy, and invitations to perform at prestigious venues poured in. But with fame came envy and jealousy. At a musical gala a few weeks later, Ethan met Isabella Munro, a 13-year-old pianist, known for her impeccable technical playing and proud temperament. She had won numerous competitions and was used to being the center of attention. When she saw Ethan come on stage to rehearse, she chuckled quietly. "A blind boy, he'll never be a match for me." Ethan, intent on the keys of his piano, didn't respond. But when he began to play, a deep, gentle melody rose up, touching every spectator. Each note seemed to vibrate with an intensity Isabella had never felt. In the end, the silence that followed was heavy with respect and astonishment. Isabella felt a pang of humiliation and defiance. She was no longer the only one impressing people with her virtuosity. "Not bad for a child," she murmured, more to herself than to Ethan. Alexander Whitman, always present as a discreet mentor, observed the scene with a subtle smile. "True geniuses don't seek to crush others. They inspire." This moment marked the beginning of a singular rivalry. Isabella became the first to feel the emotional power of Ethan's playing and decided she had to outdo the boy to protect her reputation. But little did she know that Ethan's strength lay not in competition, but in his ability to touch hearts with music. As he left the gala, Ethan walked alongside Mr. Reynolds. "Some will try to discourage me," he said calmly. "And you'll let them speak," Mr. Reynolds replied. "What matters is that your music continues to speak for you." Ethan's path had just darkened slightly, but it was also about to reveal the whole greatness of his genius because in the world of music, pure talent attracts both admiration and jealousy, and Ethan would have to learn to navigate the two. A few months later, Ethan received an unexpected invitation to participate in international competition for young pianists in New York. Talent from all over the world would be present, each with their own style, technique, and reputation. For Ethan, it would be the first time he would compete against prodigies from other countries. When he arrived, the concert hall was gigantic. Pianists from Europe, Asia, and Latin America were rehearsing on stage, some with impressive confidence, others nervous despite their talent. Ethan, accompanied by Mr. Reynolds, remained discreetly in a corner. He listened attentively to the rehearsals, absorbing each sound like a lesson. But he soon felt the tension. Some competitors looked at him with skepticism, others with ill-disguised curiosity. A Japanese pianist, Aya Tanaka, the blind boy quickly noticed and whispered to his teacher. "He doesn't stand a chance against us." Ethan didn't answer. He knew his eyes weren't seeing the scene, but his fingers saw the music. The day of the competition arrived. Pianists followed one after the other, each performing complex pieces with precision, but often without emotion. Then it was Ethan's turn. He sat down, took a deep breath, and let his heart guide his hands. The first notes resonated, then transformed into a symphony of emotion. Every spectator, even the most critical, felt a profound connection with the music. At the end, the room erupted in applause. The judges were stunned, some visibly moved to tears. Alexander Whitman, present to cheer Ethan on, felt a mixture of pride and surprise. He had seen many prodigies, but none provoked such pure emotion. Backstage, Aya Tanaka approached, her gaze a mixture of respect and defiance. "You play differently from everyone else. I've never heard anything like it." Ethan smiled softly. "I play what I feel, not what others expect." This competition marked a turning point in his career. Ethan was no longer just a blind prodigy, he was becoming an artist capable of touching souls. But behind the fame, new challenges and jealousies were brewing, and Ethan would have to learn to protect himself while remaining faithful to his music. A few days after the international competition, Ethan received a letter addressed to him, sealed with an elegant seal. Mr. Reynolds opened it carefully and read aloud. "Mr. Ethan Carter, your outstanding performance has caught the attention of Manhattan Academy of Musical Arts. We invite you to join our special program for young prodigies and benefit from exclusive mentorship with the best musicians in the world." Ethan felt his heart beat faster. The Academy was a dream for every young musician, a place where only the most talented were admitted. But something inside him hesitated. "Mr. Reynolds," Ethan said, "I want to go, but I don't want to lose who I am along the way." Mr. Reynolds smiled at him, understanding. "Ethan, your talent is pure because it comes from within you. If you stay true to yourself, no one will be able to steer you away from your path." In Manhattan, Ethan met students from all over the world. All had impressive technical skills, but many seemed more concerned with competition than music. It was there that he met Julian Hayes, a young American pianist with a reputation for being arrogant and provocative. Julian, seeing Ethan, couldn't help but smile mockingly. "So you're the blind prodigy everyone's talking about? Let's see if you're really up to it." Ethan didn't answer. He knew the real confrontation wasn't about words, but about piano keys. At their first rehearsal as a duo, Julian tried to impress the audience and faculty with his virtuoso technique. But when Ethan began to play, the room was filled with an emotional depth that surpassed any display of strength. The faculty exchanged glances of surprise and admiration. Julian, for the first time, felt aerial competition, but not just for fame. He understood that Ethan had something that no competition could measure, the power to touch people's hearts. This unexpected offer opened up a new world of possibilities for Ethan, but also of challenges. Where talent alone was not enough, he had to learn to navigate an environment where rivalries, jealousies, and pressure could extinguish even the greatest geniuses. And in this tumult, Ethan's music remained his only truth, ready to upset all who listened to it. A few weeks after arriving at the Manhattan Academy of Musical Arts, Ethan was preparing for his first major official recital in front of influential music teachers, students, and patrons. This would be a crucial step. It was no longer just a matter of showcasing his talent, but of proving that he could stand up to the greatest and earn respect in a cutthroat environment. Backstage, Julian Hayes watched Ethan with curiosity mixed with frustration. "Do you really think you can impress everyone here?" he asked provocatively. Ethan smiled calmly. "I'm not trying to impress, I just want the music to speak." As the curtains rose, the audience was struck by Ethan's energy. From the very first notes, the audience was captivated. His music told stories of pure emotion, joy, sadness, hope, and passion flowed in a harmonious flow that left everyone speechless. Julian, who was scheduled to play right after him, felt the weight of the comparison for the first time. Even his technical virtuosity seemed cold and mechanical compared to Ethan's emotional depth. The teachers murmured among themselves. "This boy not only has talent, he feels music like no one else." At the end of his performance, silence reigned for a few seconds before applause erupted, more intense than that of any other student. Some spectators had tears in their eyes. Alexander Whitman, present among the guests, stood and applauded enthusiastically, a proud smile on his face. Julian, humiliated but aware of the obvious, finally approached him. "You have an incredible gift. I didn't expect that." Ethan extended his hand simply. "Thank you, Julian. But music is not a competition. It is meant for to be shared." This first big challenge marked a turning point. Ethan was no longer just a blind prodigy, he was becoming a true rising star in the world of international music. But behind the applause, he knew that even greater challenges awaited him, fiercer rivalries, international concerts, and above all the temptation to let ambition replace the purity of his passion. And yet he moved forward, guided by his heart and his fingers, ready to make his voice heard throughout the world. A few months later, Ethan received his first invitation to a Concert International in Paris, in the famous Philharmonie Hall. It was an exceptional opportunity to perform in front of a European audience and to assert his place among the greatest young pianists in the world. Upon his arrival, he was amazed by the beauty of the city, the golden lights of the bridges, the smell of coffee in the bustling streets, and the fragrance of flowers in the public gardens. But Ethan saw none of this. For him, every sound, every vibration in the air and beneath his feet formed its own landscape, a world he felt with incredible intensity. In the rehearsal room he met Clara Dupont, a young French prodigy with a formidable reputation. Her quick and precise fingers made the keys tremble like a controlled storm. Clara, seeing Ethan approach, sketched a smile mixed with curiosity and defiance. "You're the blind boy everyone's talking about. I hope you're up to it." Ethan sat down at the piano and closed his eyes. The first notes were timid, but they quickly transformed into a vibrant and emotional melody. Each chord told a story, each nuance touched the audience's heart. Clara, though confident, felt a lump form in her throat. Her music, while technically impressive, lacked the same depth. The evening of the concert, the hall was packed. Patrons, critics, and music lovers had come from all over Europe. When Ethan began to play, a solemn silence fell over the audience. The spectators seemed to hang on every note, swept away by the emotion the boy would convey. At the end, the applause erupted, resounding and uninterrupted. Even Clara, impressed, approached timidly. "You play, as if every note has a meaning." "I've never heard that." Ethan replied with a quiet smile. "It's because I play what I feel, not what I know others expect." This first concert abroad confirmed to Ethan that his talent knew no bounds. But he also understood that fame came with envious glances and ever-increasing expectations. To continue to shine, he had to not only perfect his technique, but also remain true to the music that lived within him. And somewhere in the audience, influential producers and mentors were taking notes, sensing that this blind boy would soon change the world of music forever. A few weeks after his triumph in Paris, an unexpected event shook Ethan's career. An article in a major music magazine suggested that he wasn't actually playing alone on stage, implying that Mr. Reynolds or other mentors were directing his performance. Social media immediately erupted, with some doubting his talent and others fervently defending him. Ethan, though serene by nature, felt for the first time the weight of public judgment. "How can they say that?" he asked Mr. Reynolds, his eyes filled with frustration. "People speak when they don't understand," his teacher replied calmly. "But what matters is what you know about your talent and your heart." The scandal forced him to cancel several concerts. Invitations abroad were suspended, and Julian Hayes, true to form, did not miss the opportunity to arrogantly comment. "So, the blind prodigy, a little less perfect than we thought, eh?" Ethan, undaunted, decided to answer with his music, rather than with words. He organized a free concert in a small theater in New York, open to the public and critics. Skeptical, intrigued journalists came in large numbers. When he sat down at the piano, he closed his eyes and let his fingers guide his soul. Every note, every nuance, told his story, passion, perseverance, pain, and joy all mingled. The audience, deeply moved, immediately understood that any accusation was absurd. The truth could not be hidden from such pure talent. At the end of the performance, a stunned silence preceded a deafening ovation. Even the harshest critics bowed to him. Julian, in the audience, clenched his fists but inwardly recognized Ethan's greatness. Mr. Reynolds approached and said softly, "You just proved something important, Ethan. Truth and talent always triumph." This scandal, far from breaking him, strengthened his resolve. Ethan understood that fame brought not only admiration, but also envy and malice. and that to continue to touch the world with his music, he would have to remain true to himself, no matter the obstacles. So the blind boy transformed an attack on his integrity into a resounding triumph, confirming to all that no rumor could ever extinguish the light of his genius. The following summer, Ethan was invited to participate in the International Festival of Young Virtuosos in Vienna, Austria, a legendary stage where pianists from around the world competed and inspired one another. It was the biggest stage of his young career. The audience would be made up of influential critics, producers, and classical music enthusiasts. From the moment he arrived, he sensed the magnitude of the competition. Teenagers and young adults with extraordinary talents were rehearsing in every room of the complex. Among them was Sofia Ivanova, a Russian pianist known for her impeccable technical mastery and charismatic personality. She watched Ethan from afar, intrigued by the blind boy everyone was talking about. "So you're the famous blind prodigy," she said with a slight smile. "I'm curious to see if everything I've heard is true." Ethan simply nodded, focused on his bearings and the music he wanted to create. On the day of the festival, the main stage was immense, lit by powerful spotlights. Ethan felt the vibration of the room and let himself be guided by his fingers. The first note resonated, then a full symphony emerged, blending raw emotion and subtle virtuosity. Each musical phrase seemed to tell stories of hope, pain, and beauty, captivating every spectator. Sophia, impressed, turned to a teacher at her side. "This boy doesn't just play music, he's life. It's incredible." The judges were equally moved. They had never seen a young pianist transform a performance into such a profound emotional experience. Ethan finished his performance to complete silence, before the room erupted into applause and cheers. This festival confirmed a truth that even Alexander Whitman, his mentor, had long known: Ethan was not just a blind prodigy or a talented child, he was artist capable of changing the way people experience music. But with this success came new responsibilities. International fame meant that every gesture, every note, every choice would be scrutinized. Ethan knew he had to keep his purity and passion intact to continue moving the world. As he left the stage, Sophia approached him and said sincerely, "You're going to be a legend. And I'm glad I got to hear that today." Ethan smiled, humble but confident. This festival marked not only a new peak in his career, but also the beginning of a journey where music and emotion would guide his every step. A few years later, Ethan Carter, now a teenager, was preparing for the global concert that would seal his reputation as a legendary artist. The Berlin Philharmonic Hall was packed, with spectators from every continent eager to see the blind prodigy turn master. This time, the challenge was even greater. He was to perform a work created especially for him by a renowned contemporary composer, a complex piece combining technical virtuosity and deep emotion. Even Alexander Whitman and Mr. Reynolds were nervous. They knew this concert could define Ethan's career. Backstage, Julian Hayes, now a respectful but still competitive rival, watched Ethan with a mixture of admiration and defiance. "If anyone can make this room come alive, it's him." Ethan sat down at the piano, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Each key became an extension of his heart and soul. The music rose, at first soft and timid, then explosive and majestic, sweeping the audience away in a whirlwind of emotion. The audience hung on every note, some bursting into tears, others into muted applause. The judges and critics, who had come from all over the world, were overwhelmed. Alexander Whitman, who had never stopped supporting Ethan, felt his own emotions overwhelm him. "It surpassed everything I ever imagined." At the end of the play, the silence lasted a moment, heavy and solemn. Then, like a surge, applause and cheers erupted, filling the room with an indescribable energy. Ethan, humble, bowed his head and smiled. He hadn't just played to win, he had touched the hearts of millions of people with his music. Julian Hayes approached and extended his hand. "You're amazing, Ethan. Thank you for showing me what real music is." Ethan simply replied, "Music is not a competition. It's what we share with the world." This final concert marked the culmination of his journey. The blind boy, once ignored and underestimated, had become a living legend, capable of triggering deep emotions and changing the perception of music worldwide. And as the lights in the room went out, Ethan knew that his greatest victory was not fame, but having always followed his heart and his genius, inspiring generations to come. Years later, Ethan Carter was no longer just the blind prodigy. He had become a world-renowned artist, a symbol of pure talent and true emotion in music. The greatest concert halls around the world welcomed him, and his performances were eagerly awaited by huge crowds. Yet despite his fame, Ethan remained humble and true to his philosophy. Music was a language of the heart, not a tool for competition or fame. He taught young pianists from all over the world, teaching them to listen with their hearts before listening with their hands, to feel every note and convey emotion rather than raw technique. Alexander Whitman, still his mentor and friend, observed with pride, "You've accomplished more than I could ever have imagined. You changed music, Ethan." Even Julian Hayes and Sofia Ivanova, his former rivals, became allies and partners, collaborating with him to create unique concerts where technique and emotion merged. One evening, after a memorable performance in Tokyo, Ethan sat alone at the piano, his eyes closed, feeling every vibration of the empty room. He smiled, thinking of his journey, the blind boy who started in a small room, challenging the world with his talent and passion. He knew that his real victory was not applause or honors, but having touched the hearts of thousands of people, for having inspired generations to believe that talent and perseverance could triumph over all obstacles. And so Ethan Carter became more than a pianist, he became a living legend, proof that music, when guided by the heart, can change the world.